He'd been there before a few times, and by the time he turned left on Fifth Avenue on that cool October morning, he was just as familiar with those last few miles as the spectators were with the sight of him out in front. When he crossed the finish line in Central Park and won his fourth consecutive New York City Marathon, he knew he'd made history. But he had no way of knowing at the time that nearly 5 decades later, he would remain the only man in history to have done so. Today is Tuesday, October 28th, 2025, and this week in 1979, American Bill Rodgers became the New York City Marathon champion for the fourth and final time. In this episode, we'll sit down with Rodgers himself to hear what that day was really like. I'm your host, Running Up That Hillary, and you are listening to Today in Running History. Okay, guys, so I know I've been MIA, and backing up a bit, I had the most incredible time in Chicago. I ended up with an 18-minute PR at the marathon, but my immune system sucks, and I guess going all out on race day left me a little bit run down. So I pretty much got back home to San Antonio and immediately contracted the flu. I got my flu shot a few weeks prior, like at the end of September. So I was hoping that that would make my symptoms mild, and it seems to have done basically nothing at all. I ended up completely incapacitated in bed for like 9 days. Basically, my life became this cycle of just waking up long enough to take some more medicine, maybe eat a saltine cracker, and then falling back asleep for multiple hours before doing it all again. And literally everything fell by the wayside, including my family, eating normal food, brushing my hair, and this podcast. I did not expect it to last an entire week and a half, but that is exactly what ended up happening. And here we are, 2 weeks after the last episode. I am so sorry for the hiatus, but thank you all so much for tuning back in for today's episode. And speaking of today's episode, it is once again Tattoos Day, which means that this episode is sponsored by my race tats. They are the awesome temporary tattoos that I wear for all of my races. The Chicago Marathon was possibly the best race I have ever run. And while running that one, I had not one, but two mantra tattoos from my race tats, one on each inner wrist. One side was the limited edition tat made specifically for that race, which said Run Chicago, and the other side said Dig Deep. I definitely used the reminder to dig deep during the last few miles of the race when fatigue started to set in and I was able to rally and finish strong. I truly cannot recommend my race tats enough, and listeners of Today in Running History will always receive 20% off by using my code Hillary at checkout. I will put a link to my race tats in the episode description, so definitely go and check them out. Now let's talk about Bill Rodgers. I am going to give the highest of high-level intros because our conversation ended up running a bit long. Bill Rodgers was born in 1947 in Connecticut and has lived in New England for his entire life. He ran cross country and track at Wesleyan University alongside Amby Burfoot, who came on the pod back in August, and Jeff Galloway, who will be joining us this December. Rodgers won the Boston Marathon 4 times, competed in the 1976 Olympic Marathon in Montreal, has broken the American record a few times, has won a marathon on 5 separate continents, and of course is the only man in history to win the New York City Marathon 4 times. There are so many more accolades I could list, but for now, let's go ahead and welcome Bill Rodgers to Today in Running History. All right, I am here with Bill Rodgers. How are you this morning, Bill?
I'm doing good, Hillary. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. So, for anyone not familiar, could you give us a little bit of a background of how you started running, everything prior to Boston and New York and everything you did there?
Yeah, Hillary, I started running as a cross-country runner at Newington High School. I'm born in Hartford. My brother and I, when I was a sophomore, he was a junior, we joined the Newington High School cross-country team. It was the first time they ever had cross-country at Newington. It was only boys at that time. Our sport was still in the backwards world. Unfortunately, that the leadership of the sport was weak, so there were no girls on the team and everything, but we had a great coach. From there, I was able to be pretty successful. My brother Charlie had hay fever, and we ran in a field near our house. That was our track and everything. We're going back a ways into the 60s. But but we had great fun. We didn't get overworked. And if you don't get overworked, there's room to improve and train. So I always try to say to the beginners, take your time. Take your time. You're building your heart, and how you feel about your running. Don't so I think the good coaches do that today, Hillary. We have more good coaches today than ever before, more women coaches. We need more women coaches in athletics. And so I think some of the results that we're seeing today are great young champions, American and around the world, but particularly here in the US. It's been great to see the success of these strong-minded, very determined people. So then I went to Wesleyan University down the road from my hometown of Newington because I got recruited in a sense, even though it's wasn't for an athletic thing, but certainly my running helped me at Wesleyan. It helped me mentally.
Sure.
Today I would be described as someone with ADHD, I'm kind of like going in a million directions. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So we didn't know about that in those days, but running, I think, gave me something I could focus on. I could focus. And all you had to do was follow the guy ahead of you. And that for me was Amby Burfoot or
Yeah.
Jeff Galloway. I mean, we had these guys who went on from Wesleyan, this little Division III school, to great success, in the marathon. I mean, it's just incredible. We had a really good coach, Coach Elmer Swanson. He was smart because he listened to us too. It was a two-way street. You got to be able to communicate with your coach. Let's say you're fighting shin splints or some injuries coming on, you got to back off. So he was a good coach, and we all did pretty well under him, especially Amby, who, as a senior, won the Boston Marathon. And Hillary, we were roommates that year. And I remember getting phone calls in our dorm, is Mr. Burfoot there? And you know what I mean? This is
Yeah.
like something out of a movie. It's so crazy. And we couldn't understand Amby. I mean, Jeff Galloway could, because Jeff Galloway was also a marathoner. But I didn't really know that back then. I just knew he was pretty quick in the mile and the half mile, and he made the Olympic team.
Yeah.
And years later, when I moved to Boston, I saw Jeff running the Boston Marathon, like in fifth place or something. But when Andy won, he didn't come back. He didn't have his medal around his neck. He
Wow.
didn't talk about it much. But I trained with Amby that year, and it was my best year at Wesleyan because he took me out on these long runs. My first 15 miler. You come back, you're getting cramps in your hamstrings and everything. But you know what he did? We went into the woods, to the trails, to the grass. This is how you build strength gradually. It's a gradual process, and this is how Amby Burfoot built up because he was following his coach, Johnny Kelly, Olympian in the marathon in Melbourne, Australia, ran against the great Emil Zatopek in the Olympic marathon, and was a great champion and is the only member of the Boston Athletic Association ever to win Boston. So there's this kind of crazy grassroots history. It really helped me a lot. But when I graduated from Wesleyan, to me, I need someone else to run with.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a team sport.
Yeah.
And even though you might be out there, with some teammate, like I remember training, I convinced Greg Meyer to move from Michigan to Boston after we ran World Cross Country together in 1978. He beat me there pretty easily. Greg was a great cross country runner. He could move, but we became great friends, and he became a marathoner and later went on to win Boston. And so we shared information. I did hill repeats with Greg, which I hadn't done much before. He really got me to do those. And I took him out for long runs. And after a while, I started to really hammer, and really succeed because we all improve. Hillary, we all improve.
Yeah,
That's the great
absolutely.
thing. That's what's great about this sport. If you give it time, give it time and let the sport come to you. Run like the Kenyans and Ethiopians do so much. They're on dirt and grass a lot because that way you strengthen your feet and your ankles and your legs. Then when you get to asphalt, you're running faster because it's a quicker surface.
Yeah.
So anyway, I learned that from Ambi and from Jeff, and but when I moved to Boston, it was that was I saw the Boston Marathon and I couldn't believe it. I had heard about Amby, he won it, and but now you have to see it. It wasn't on TV back in the when I got to Boston, it was 1970. And my roommate, Jason Kehoe, he ran cross country with me at Newington. And he said, let's go over and see the marathon. It was like half a mile away. And then I saw people I raced against when I was at Wesleyan, like John Vitale from the University of Connecticut, you know, um, Amby Burfoot, Jeff, a few other runners, but I didn't know the marathon. But what happened to me was two things came together. I got fired from a job, and I was trying to start a union at the hospital I was working for, and they didn't like that. Or my methods of trying to change things were kind of crude. And so I got axed. And then my only thing of value financially was a motorcycle, which I had borrowed $1,000 from my roommate, Jason. I got stolen. I later saw the guy ride right by the hospital because one of my buddies who worked at the hospital also saw him. But what can you do? The guy, you can't run after him.
Yeah,
That was it. And when that happened, Hillary, it changed my life. I said, I'm going to get back to running. I joined the Boston YMCA, start running around in the little track indoors, and all these old timers are beating me and everything. And then spring came and you could run outside, which is where we are meant to move. We're meant
absolutely.
to go outside,
Yeah.
Mother Nature. And you could run up near Kenmore Square, the beautiful park, where the colleges are and great art museums up there. And I said, I'm back. I'm coming back. So the more I ran, the less I smoked. I had become a smoker, and kind of a tricky time in my life. And I think for the young people, for all young people, it's a hard time when you leave home.
Absolutely.
You know, Bob Dylan's written about this, you
Yeah.
know, you know the deal. This is the deal, and it's a hard time. So, but I found out I ran a 30K race. I decided I'm going to run Boston. At that time, this was 1972, 73. You could enter Boston for $5. And I came in third in this 30-kilometer road race in Massachusetts, won by Amby, because Amby was winning everything, just about. Yeah, he was just still had the focus.
Yeah.
And and I said, I'm doing pretty good. But I didn't know how to pace myself.
Yeah,
Today they have pacers, and they are so key. They help you so much. So I dropped out. I made it to the top of Heartbreak, which was about 2 or 3 miles from where I lived, which was in Jamaica Plain. And I kind of limped home. As here which we all do. You get beaten up.
for sure.
You gotta expect it. It's not always a smooth path. You're gonna have days that are your day. Everybody gets your day. If you just stay persistent, you know, and rest when you're sore or coming down with an injury, back off, and then come back slowly. So my second marathon was in the fall, Hillary. It was a tiny little marathon. It doesn't even exist anymore.
Where was it?
It was in Framingham, Massachusetts, and it was put on by the YMCA, which is ironic because today the YMCA's Massachusetts give out the water. at the Boston course, you know?
And Framingham, I feel like we run through that during the Boston Marathon, right? That's one of the little
Oh
towns.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Framingham's a pretty big city. This
Okay.
was this was at the Y there, and it was Julie Firmoil and her husband, this couple who I think worked at the YMCA, put this event on because the YMCA is about your health and fitness.
Yeah.
You know, and I had started using a rowing machine, and like I said, got my comeback. I was trying to make a comeback. Anyway, I what really helped me was I got a pacer, Tom Derderian, who's written maybe the ultimate book in a certain way about marathoning, which is the history of the Boston Marathon. And Tom really knows his running history, and in particular about Boston. So he paced me for 16 miles, Hillary. And I was back in like sixth or seventh or eighth place. I was running pretty good. I felt good. It was cool. And I love the cool weather. If it was cool weather, I could move, you know. And so I took off and I won the race. And
Oh,
that
that's
changed
awesome.
everything. When you have a good day, and we all are going to get them, just stay persistent. You know what I mean? Stay persistent. And when I won that race, that set me up. But it wasn't all a smooth road, Hillary. I had my DNFs ahead of me even more. You know, in the end, Hillary, I did 60 marathons my lifetime, and I dropped out of eight. They were all hot and humid.
Yeah.
You know, because marathoning was such a backward sport. It drove all of us crazy that the people leading these events, including the Boston Athletic Association, and even the New York Roadrunners, you know, with Fred LeBeau, he was starting his race at 10:30 in the morning
Yeah.
in September.
Yeah.
It was 90 degrees.
Yeah.
You know, it's like help. But it was, but we had no power.
Sure.
The runners, we kind of had no power. We couldn't speak up to the world athletics at the time. We later did and really changed the sport strongly in 1981, you know, but Tom Fleming and I, my New Jersey buddy, he won New York twice in the heat. He would have run so much faster if he had gotten a cool day. But Fred
Yeah.
did learn. Fred was a smart guy. He and people like George Hirsch and the crew there in the early days changed. They
Yeah.
were willing to change. The BAA was refusing to change.
Yeah.
They drove us crazy. It was 1986 before the Boston Marathon changed. And what, no, it was later. It was like in the 2000, I think it was 2012, Boston moved to
Wow.
clear start time, Hillary. That's
Wow.
crazy. That's
Yeah.
being hostile to the runners. Be
Absolutely.
friendly to the runners, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, they did change and they later got some great leadership. People like Tom Grilk, who is a member of Greater Boston Track Club, coached by the great Billy Squires. You know, I do just want to, I keep saying the coaches. I always had great coaches. We all had great coaches. Greg Meyer was coached first at University of Michigan by Ron Warhurst, one of our great collegiate coaches, but also Billy Squires. He coached Salazar. He coached Greg. You know, Dick Mahoney, Bob Hodge, who was a 210 guy. You know, and
Yeah. I have his book too. I don't have it on my desk like I have yours, but I do have yeah, Bill Squires. I have his book as well.
he is a piece of work. He was a miler at Notre Dame, same place where our Olympic bronze medalist Molly Seidel went to college.
Yeah.
A great athlete, fastest, one of the fastest women ever at New York City Marathon. She is
Yeah.
a piece of work, you know, like all the champions are there. But what I'm trying to say is we all have this in us. We all have this, but everything is, can you get the breaks in your life? I was someone who couldn't do well in anything else. That's who I was. So I said, I think I better stick with this. So when I had that little bit of success, it gave me incentive.
Yeah.
And there was no money. You know, I didn't have a shoe deal. After I won Boston in 75, that changed everything. And I got offered $50 to go to Ashland High School and talk to the students there, you know, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, the big money. The big
That's
money was
great.
there, and it was just, but that's the way it was. But down the road, it was building. More and more athletes were chafing over the need to change our sport. Marty LaCory, our great American miler and an Olympian, I think at the age of 18 or something, New Jersey guy at Essex Catholic, um, state that's produced so many great champions. He talked about, how the Eastern Bloc countries of the day and the Russians were state supported, whereas here in America, you're college supported.
Sure.
But then it ends. And
Yeah.
then where you go, well, you're kind of grasping at straws.
Yeah.
So all of that changed in 1981 at the Cascade Runoff in Portland, Oregon, when we forced the hand of U.S. track and field. About 30 top Americans and a bunch of New Zealand women in particular. Anna Dane won that race on the women's side. In fourth place was America's Patty Dillon,
Yeah.
who is one of our great women champions of all time, set the world record in the marathon in Montreal, 1981, defeating Jacqueline Garreau and Joan Samus. And, so the women were starting to flex their muscles too and say, we want to be part of this sport, and why not?
Yeah.
And all the guys said, of course, you should be there. It was the backwardsness that crushed the women.
Yeah.
It was the backwardness. Unfortunately, it was a fair amount of some doctors, and world athletics was backwards a long time. They did finally change. And people like Jacqueline Hansen, Catherine Switzer, um, Mary, who's the woman who, boy, well, in other words, there was about half a dozen. They call them the pioneers of
Yeah.
Boston in New York.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the story about my first New York. It was
Yeah.
74. Kathy Switzer won the women's that day. She won on a brutal day. It was about 90 degrees. Well, first prize was a trip to Greece. And
Wow.
the race was sponsored, that prize was sponsored by Olympic Airways. I wanted to go to Greece because the Olympic Games, watched the Olympic Games as a kid when I was a junior in high school, and I saw Bakila win the Olympic marathon and then go over and start doing stretching exercises. And I said, how did they do that? I'm running 2 miles and I'm very tired. At about the same pace, he ran 26 miles. It was just like, holy cow. And but I learned about the sport more and more. And the sport went open in 1981. And Frank Shorter played a key role in that, with the Bank of Boulder in Colorado, and trying to allow us to earn a living like everyone else in America.
Yeah.
Why should we be penalized when we're trying to make the Olympic team? It was
Absolutely.
so backwards,
Yeah.
big backwardsness. I mean, open the door, come on, and they did.
Yeah.
And a lot of people really benefited, and the younger people today are really benefited. But I like what I'm an older person now, and but I look to the generation before me. I met Bob Schlau, our Olympic 5K gold medalist from Dayton, Ohio. Billy Mills. I met Billy Mills. I said, damn, this guy won the gold medal in the Olympic Games on the track. And
Yeah.
and uh um I met the fellow who won a bronze medal in world cross country for us in the early 70s. And you start meeting more and more people. And then I started being invited. Once I won Boston, Hillary, I got invited to other races, which was the ultimate goal. You would get your American suit, you're representing your country. And this is the way that I wanted to represent if I had a chance. I wasn't a military guy. The Vietnam War came on when I was younger, when I was at that age. And so that's why I was working at that hospital.
Yeah.
So it was a very tough time. A lot of my buddies, many of them marathoners, like Bob 70, who coached Joan Samuelson, helped her win that gold medal. Greater Boston Track Club guy. He was a Vietnam vet. My friend, he helped me become a better runner. my friend Don Avgene, who's run like 30 Marine Corps marathons. I mean, the Marines are tough. They
Yeah.
really, really are. But I wasn't a fighting guy. I was
Yeah.
more a running guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a big part
It
of your book as well. That's something that you talk about quite a bit
was
is about that.
I think it was a hard time for America.
Yeah.
Really tough. And but I think I think everything was starting to change in many positive ways, and running was one thing that helped things get better. I think doors opened. Like I said, women came into the sport, and just like they are in soccer today and
Yeah.
basketball today, women want to be athletes too,
Yeah.
and we all want to have better health in
Yeah.
our lives, especially as we get older, You really feel it. I'm warning you, Hillary. Brace yourself. No, it's just it's kind of a cool thing in a way, getting older, but it's thought provoking.
Yeah,
But you're out there with other older people, and it's kind of
absolutely.
fun. I am going to the Dick Beardsley
Oh, how
races.
cool. Yeah, that's coming up in what, a week? Not this weekend, but the following, right?
Yes, yeah, and
Yeah.
Dick is one of my buddies, but he was an arch rival.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hillary. We duked it at New York, at Boston. The Duel in the Sun.
Yeah.
I was in that race with Dick Beardsley and
Yeah.
Alberto Salazar.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew Alberto since he was in high school. He's 15 years old. I watched him improve
Yeah.
and I understood him. I understood him. And I understood Dick too. They are two of the most determined people I've ever met. I'm not as determined as they were. They could put up with a lot of mental and physical fatigue.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. I was over on the side of the road asking the nurses to come over and check my pulse. I'm serious. They were both incredible people and both really good people. Both had some struggles in their lives, but everyone does, really.
Sure.
And I had my share too. But the marathon, New York City, I went for that prize of a trip to Greece
And
along with Kathy
this was, you
Switzer.
said 74 at this point?
This is 74.
Okay.
And, New York City, and it's hot as heck and everything, but that's the way it was. I went out like boom, 20 miles, I'm way, way ahead. But by 21 or 2, I'm on the side of the road. I didn't run smart
Yeah.
or cabeza. You gotta use your mind. This is a,
Absolutely.
this is a thinking person sport, and a lot of times I didn't. I just got caught up too much in competition. I can do it, I can do it. Well, sometimes you can and sometimes you can't.
Sure.
And Mother Nature is our greatest, not an adversary, but what you got to deal with, everybody. I don't care who you are, Ilya Kipchoge, Galen Rupp, whoever you are, the greatest athlete, the people who succeed the most are that way. Frank Shorter,
Yeah.
he could think his way through things. He was really on the ball that way. But if you lose control, Mother Nature could get you. So that's what happened to me. But at 21 miles, I'm lying on the side of the road like, woe is me. And over comes this young guy from Staten Island who I knew. I knew him from the Roadrunners Club, African American guy who was pretty darn good. And he says, Bill, are you okay? I said, not really. Can you get me some water? His name was Art Hall from Staten Island. He got me some water. I got up and I crawled to the finish because it's kind of like the marathon. You're always trying to get to the finish line.
Absolutely.
I made it to the finish, and it was another learning curve thing. To this day, I don't know if Kathy Switzer took advantage of the free ticket to go to Greece. I later went to Greece. It was one of the great trips of my life. And any of your listeners, if you have a chance to go to Greece, check out the Olympic Stadium in Greece. Um, Go out if you can to run the Athens Marathon.
Yeah.
Go to the Plain of Marathon, where the war was fought, one of the wars between the Athenians and the Persians. There's a big burial mound. And what was interesting, Hillary, where all the soldiers are buried, sadness. But I was with Alberto Salazar, and a Canadian film company did a documentary on us, which no one's seen in the US. It was Canadian guys doing this, or a crew. We met a Greek historian. He said, no, he said Phidippides wouldn't have run this route into the 1896 stadium. You're talking way, way back when this happened. He would have run over the hills. And there is like a 15-mile route. You can go over some hills to Athens. So Alberto and I did that. And then you go into the stadium. This is a stadium. This is made of marble. The
Wow.
king of Greece sat there waiting for someone from Greece to win that gold medal in the marathon. And a Greek person did win it. It's just history is mind-boggling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, of course, Hillary, the Boston Marathon grew out of this
Yeah.
history.
Yeah.
We didn't do well in Athens
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
1896
In that one.
marathon.
Yeah.
We did
Actually,
pretty good because Americans are pluggers.
yeah.
We are pluggers, but we just for some reason. So the BAA started that marathon, and a Greek guy won it one year, and there's a statue of him around the 3 mile mark, and a great story about his duel with Johnny Kelly at Boston and everything. But I think in the end, we all are explorers. And
Absolutely.
so we're explorers, we're trying to see what we can do. And today, one of the cool things that's come about that wasn't there too much way, way back was the fundraising side.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very complex. I think sometimes I'm all in favor of it if the money's really going to
Oh,
research,
definitely. Yeah.
like Dana-Farber and or one,
Yeah.
there's like
Yeah.
175 groups that do fundraising, I believe, at
Yeah.
the Boston
Yeah.
Marathon. And all of them
I
have
ran Boston for charity actually. I ran in 2023 I ran Boston for charity. My daughter had heart surgery as an infant, and so I ran for Team Big Heart, so pediatric cardiology, and it was such a cool experience to be able to raise money for a cause that was so close to my family and everything. And so
absolute key.
yeah.
And you know what I think, Hillary, I just wish all my life, I always talk to the media. Talk to the media. Don't turn your back to them, as much as we can, because the more we can do that and talk about the health side of our sport, we have something in this sport which a lot of sports don't have. Our health and fitness, these are like vague words. What does it mean? It's really your heart. I
Yeah.
call them, what are the Olympic cardio sports? Well, they're running, walking, swimming, cycling, rowing. You know what I mean, Hillary?
Yeah. Yeah.
You seize the day. You had your chance. You seized the day. In 1975, after I won Boston, I started getting letters from people in the mail, and so did Will Cloney, who was race director. Turned out to be a really good race director because even though he was held back by the backwardness of the BAA, he tried to change it for the better. We got letters from the MS Society, and people would write in and say, "Can I raise money for the MS Society at Boston?" And we checks for like $250 from your coworkers would come in, to Will and I and everything. So I think that was that, and also the Greek guy who won in 1945, I think, beat Johnny Kelly or 46. He raised a lot of money for the Greek people following World War II.
Yeah.
You know, but I understand what you're doing, and I've worked with fundraising ever since
Yeah.
that 1975, because of things like skin cancers in my family. My grandfather died of melanoma, so I've worked with Impact Melanoma at Boston. But let me tell you another story. This was 50 years this year since I won Boston. I was lucky enough to finally win
Yeah.
and well, a wheelchair guy came along around those years, 73, 74, and he won Boston in 75. That's
Yeah.
Bob Hall.
Yeah. I was about to say, yeah. And I saw y'all's stuff this year for the 50th.
yes, 50th Boston, mind-boggling, and I hadn't seen Bob 5, 6, 7 years. He had worked with the BAA, but had, some disagreements, even though Sherry Blauwet, who is a BAA champion, became CEO of the Boston Marathon. I think sometimes these organizations are so big, they forgot some of the people that came there and helped lay down the framework for your success as an entity, and Bob Hall was like that. So it was kind of a struggle this year for him to be treated with respect by the BAA. In the end, Jack Fleming was persuaded to, yes, treat Bob good, and Bob Hall was also the champion of the Falmouth Road Race, the first one. And all the modern day champions, in wheelchair division know who Bob Hall is,
Yeah.
so, but he was kind of, I don't know, kind of like pushed aside for a long time. And I'm in touch with him a lot today. And some stories, is unbelievable. But he led the way, he led the way. He had a lot of guts.
Awesome. Yeah, I followed Bob. I'm hoping to get him on the pod at some point as well, actually. I've connected with the 26.2 Foundation, and so I know he's involved with them and everything. So I would love to have him on here. I also I had Jean Driscoll on last week. So her
Yes.
episode is about to come out and everything. It's crazy how much wheelchair racing has changed, and just the technology and everything. Looking at some of those early, like I can't even imagine racing in what they raced in the 70s before actual racing chairs were available. It's crazy to see what that
Well,
consisted of.
Bob Hall was key to that because he started his own chair building company,
Yeah. Yeah.
Hall's Wheels.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
top pros of today, they all recognize Bob Hall. It was ironic because there was a fella at the BAA who was, I'm telling you, not very welcoming to Bob Hall, which he and I fought back against and everything. You'd think today, I mean, come on. But anyway, Bob is a good friend of mine. He lives about 20 miles from me
Oh,
here.
cool.
So I'll continue his email and everything, whatever, you
Great.
know. Yeah. So I think our sports changed in that way, and the doors opened so much, But so there were those champions from those years. But New York City, I my first New York was that struggle marathon I did in the 95-degree heat, 74. I didn't come back till 76, Hillary, to New York. I didn't run 75. But 76, oh, I'll tell you what happened. Made the Olympic team. Very lucky. A lot of competition and everything, but it was a good day in the field. And I knew Frank. I had beaten Frank in world cross country in 75. Took a bronze medal for the U.S. Very proud of that one. And so I thought, well, I can race with Frank.
Yeah.
And he beat me by just a little bit, but he did edge ahead of me. And Frank is a great competitor.
Yeah.
Anyway, what happened though is I ran the Olympic 10K trial. I got injured. My foot got injured. So I had a really hard time in the Olympics. It became kind of a hobble run the last 10 miles.
Yeah.
So after the Olympic Games held in August, 2 weeks later, Frank and I are duking it out at the Falmouth Road Race. Crazy, but he ran it really well.
Yeah.
I did a hobble run. When you do a hobble run, when you're beat up, you really get beat up. And so that was a hard day. But Fred LeBeau came down from New York and talked to me and Frank about doing this new race, the 5 borough New York City Marathon. And I said, yeah, we said, yeah, we'll do it. We're going to do it. So we both raced there. And that was my Olympic Games.
Yeah. Yeah. Your
That
redemption race.
redemption. yes, it has religious connotations. Not really, but you know what I mean.
Definitely. Yeah.
It's a very human thing, and we all feel when we get beaten up one way or another. We're looking for recovery, and how do you get back? And so this was my Olympic race. And I remember I was reading an article recently. George Hirsch wrote. You can actually buy a book, History of the New York City Marathon, 50-year history now. And he wrote that, at the halfway, I think Frank, he had taken his second Olympic medal and he was tired.
Yeah.
And I had the motivation, I still had to go.
Yeah.
He had started marathoning before me. He had 5, 6 years, the best in the world and everything. So at halfway, we gave each other a handshake, and
Yeah.
he passed the torch to me a little bit, me and whoever else was there, Tom Fleming, Bob Hodge, all the others of the time on the men's side and everything. But so I won that race. And after that, I felt, people think sometimes I'm asked by people, well, what do you like more, the Boston Marathon or New York City Marathon? I like them both. I'm from I'm from Newington, Connecticut, halfway between Boston and New York. But they think because I lived in the Boston area, I favor it more or something. But New York meant a lot to me, that comeback race.
Yeah.
And and so it's like I keep saying it's up here. What do you want to do with your running and everything? And look for the races where you can, you can still succeed.
Yeah.
That's the key. And find them. What is your favorite race, And New York became one of mine. I like it because I was better, Hillary, on the duke it out, hilly kind
Yeah.
of courses,
Yeah.
Boston and New York. I like Chicago. I take my hat off to Kerry Pinkowski. He is the man who made the Chicago Marathon what it is. He and his team is a good team. It's not one person in the event, it's your team. Fred LeBeau was there, but he had a great team,
Yeah.
you know, and so I never ran well at Chicago. It's too flat. Some runners, a lot of the track guys like Iliad, he could
Yeah.
crank out on the flat. He could
Yeah.
move. I was a fair track guy, but the track, it's a little too mean for me.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
the more float. You can float at Boston. If
Yeah.
you give it time, you can take the downhills easy and push the uphills if you like. I mean, I was lucky I lived there and everything. And New York is a lot like Boston, though it's a bit tougher and everything. But the feeling is the same. This is the intensity of the marathon. It's just like the Olympics, with the huge crowds. And this is a family sport today. It wasn't maybe, in the beginning, as women came in, it became more a family sport. So it's a better sport than ever, and it's global.
Yeah.
And that's what I love. I like the idea of the World Marathon Majors, and I've won a marathon on 5 continents myself.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. Wow, what are
yeah,
so obviously we know all about North America. I want to hear about the other four continents. That's
yeah.
so cool because I
Well,
think that's a lesser known thing.
yeah, because no one knows this kind of stuff. And there's another American who's won on 5 continents.
That's
And
awesome.
can you guess his name? And he's a 209 guy. I talked to him the other day because I do a little podcast with him and Benji Durden, who made our Olympic team in 1980 and used to be an arch rival of mine, but we're good friends too.
Oh, how cool.
But this guy's name is Ron Tabb. He
Yeah.
was born in Missouri, became a top marathoner, won Houston, but he and I both won in Australia. He won Sydney, I won Melbourne in Australia. And in Europe, I won Amsterdam and I won Stockholm
Okay, very
in
cool.
Australia, and he won Paris.
Awesome. That's so cool.
Dick Beardsley won London,
Yeah, yeah. Knew that
first
one
year
too.
of the
Yeah.
London Marathon.
Yeah. And that's
In
a cool
South
story too.
America, we both won Rio de Janeiro.
Very, very cool.
Way back Patty Catalano, now Patty Dillon, she won that race too. great American champion, never gets any credit. Unbelievable for how good she was.
Yeah.
But her career hurt badly by an accident uh, after she won Honolulu, like for the fourth or fifth time or
Yeah.
something. So we all find out the races we like the best. Patty, it was Honolulu and Boston.
Yeah.
But she also ran second to Greta at New York once, and ran 2:29 there. And pretty damn good time.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day too, quite a ways ago. This is before there was too much support. There was some. She signed on with Nike and everything and did well. But I think it's a greater sport than ever before. The future is bright. There is a blight on our sport. If you really follow the sport at the top level, competitive level, it's just like other sports, that had their problems with drugs, you know.
Definitely.
And one thing I'll say about the Americans, they're clean.
Yeah.
They're clean, and they're partly why they're slower. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of cheating going on. It's like, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. When I saw that 209 marathon,
Yeah.
please,
Yeah.
all of us who follow the sport, who really know the sport good, we know it was a joke.
Yeah.
And I do take my hat off to Sebastian Coe, great Olympic champion
Yeah.
and leader of world athletics, for initiating the Athletes Integrity Unit. I think they got to step up to another level,
Yeah.
to the gold medal level, to
Definitely.
really make our sport the best sport in the world. But there is a problem, but oh well, I think they're trying to deal with it, but I think it's a hard thing to deal with.
And it's disappointing to see that stuff. And it's disappointing to see things like Chicago, the world record standing. It's like I'm not really sure what the justification there is.
When you take a look at it, you're a woman, Hillary, you're a woman. What, who is really the fastest woman on the planet? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing, I don't think it's that woman. I
No.
think that record should be removed.
I-
Anyone who cheated or doped, who set a so-called record, that's not a real record, it's a fake
Yeah.
record.
I
Someone,
agree, and I'm not really sure what the justification in not nullifying that is. But I definitely agree
I
there.
think World Athletics has got to take a look at a lot of our old records
Yeah.
because steroids were used sometimes by sprinters
Yeah.
back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, or whatever, trying to compete, trying to make a living. A lot of the athletes were poor.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
A lot of the great athletes today are poor, and you got to have a heart.
Yeah.
So that's the way it is. So we have an issue here that's really tough. We need our real leaders. We need, the world Abbott people to step up. I think they have a bit about this issue, the World Marathon majors and everything. I still believe no matter all these things, this is the greatest sport in the world. The marathon is just a quest, though, Hillary. I think a lot of people, I mean, it's like, Hillary, you had something really, really important why you did boss, why you have to do it. You
Yeah.
had to get out there and really push yourself hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, look what you did it for. You did it for your daughter. I mean, this is her health, her life. So our sport has got something other sports doesn't have. This way you can run for someone else. So who are you running for? Well, maybe you're running for your team and to do your best and everything. But sometimes you can run for someone you don't even know, but a memory of, like I told you about my grandfather.
Yeah.
Well, and my father was hit with that cancer too. So I've worked with that group for 15 years for Impact Melanoma. I know some of the runners there, and it's like, I can't believe they're still doing a marathon, but they have something they're really trying to fight for.
And you read, and I've seen an interview. You've run for specifically for charity, and I've seen the photo. I think it was Boston, sometime around like 2003 or so. I can't
Well,
remember what year it was.
what happened was Tom Grill, the former race director of the Boston Marathon for many years, a lawyer too, who really a sharp guy. and a former member of Greater Boston Track Club. He ran Boston. He did a ton of races, Dave McGilvery, former member of the Greater Boston Track Club. I mean, he said that any winner should receive two entry fees to do what they want with, give to your. I used to give them to my friends, neighbors, anybody that wanted the biz.
Yeah.
But now, then fundraising really became huge, and a lot of the organizations are asking for $10,000. A lot of money,
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of money, but we didn't earn any money back in those days.
Yeah.
At first. Later, I did. I got paid very well, and I did pretty well financially, but it was a struggle, and it was even harder for the wheelchair racers, nothing for them for so long. But today you can do pretty well. I think the champions are, and they should be paid well. Look what we pay people in football, baseball, basketball,
Oh,
millions of
definitely.
dollars a year. Come on.
Yeah,
I
and I
think
mean
the
the
sport is
amount
easy.
the amount of money that the sport brings in. I mean, I feel like I paid. I mean, I raised $9,000 for the charity, but I also for my bib, I feel like I paid like $400. And
Yes.
so the amount of money that it brings in, that the champions should be paid fairly.
Is it kind of a tough thing because people want to run every year and some of them they're just missing it and it's getting tougher and tougher.
Yeah.
When I ran Boston, qualifying was so much easier and it only cost $5. No, then it's but these marathons,
Oh, hold on. Did I lose you audio wise? Um,
it said it's being
okay.
recorded.
Okay, sorry. It cut out for just a second. I think that was on my end. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, just that I think our sport is becoming more understood this way
Yeah.
by the public because of fundraising. And we need our sport to be more understood so more people not necessarily will go run a marathon. Like I said, the marathon is a quest, but it's a pretty cool one.
Yeah.
And it's pretty harmless, really. And but to do a 5K,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, come to Boston area in December, run the Bill Rodgers Jingle Bell Run with
Oh,
me
that
and
sounds
about
fun.
2,000 other runners, a race like that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, Hillary, is find your way into the sport. Or on the 4th of July, do your 4th of July race in your hometown, or whatever suits your fancy. You
Yeah.
know, go to your local track and say, you know what? It's really a tough thing. You see this thing where now we have people taking these drugs to lose weight. And I understand that deal. Totally, from working in the hospital, it was pretty tough. So a lot of people really fighting tough things. And one thing was being real overweight. I met one guy, I think he weighed like 700 pounds. It was really brutal. He could barely walk down the hall. And but you can walk.
Yeah.
We can all walk. And so my point is, to take this path is a better path, a better way, maybe, and just join all neighborhoods. There's running and walking clubs, cycling clubs, swimming. This is the best way to go forward, or at least take a look at it. Find what you like. When you find what you like, then your life's okay. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I love. Here in San Antonio, I'm part of our local run club, and they're everywhere. And it's everybody from, people who are trying to qualify for the Olympic trials all the way to somebody trying to finish their first marathon. We don't really have a ton of people here who are trying to actually make the Olympic team training here in San Antonio because it's really hot. But we do have people
Yes.
who qualify for the trials, and so that's really cool. From all the way from that level to
Yeah,
back of the pack, just trying to get to the finish line, and I feel like it's you see that in just about every city you go to. There's that
absolutely.
local sort of thing, and
This
it's
is our sport.
yeah.
I was in Toledo, Ohio last week. A young athlete, Evan Gaynor, he coaches athletes. He now lives in Santa Fe. He's doing it there, but he's from Toledo. I raced in Toledo way back in the 80s and everything. I met a couple of champion runners from Toledo way back then, Jim O'Neill, Saima, and I spent like a day meeting people. The Roadrunners Club is very big there, you know. It was way back, you know, they've got great leadership. This running club, and they have a huge park system in Toledo, which I had no idea, you know. So I saw, and we did a 3 mile run, about 200 of us, you know, it was great. So, and I've been to San Antonio. There used to be a really big running store there run by a guy, I think he was from Peru. He was an Olympian, and I've forgotten his last name. He was really good, 10K guy. And I know it's very Hillary
Yeah.
in San Antonio,
It
you know.
is. Yeah.
But that's great training, you know. Maybe you walk the uphill and then you run the downhill, but you feel your way into the sport and
Yeah.
just take your time. I think one of the keys is go to the running store,
Yes. Yes.
find the shoes you love, put them both on, lace them up, walk around a little, jog around a little outside the store, see how they feel. Because it's hard to find the right shoe.
Definitely.
Yes, and it gets even trickier when you get older. It's like
Yeah.
nothing works.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, our local stores are great too. We actually my club had demo day this last weekend at one of our stores. So all of the, all the shoe companies come, they bring the demo shoes so you can actually go do, 7 miles and see because it's so much more beneficial than running back and forth at the sidewalk in front of the store and being like, yeah, I think this feels okay. Because there's so
Yeah,
much more when you're out there running for 45 minutes, an hour, and
absolutely.
seeing what that actually feels like. So yeah, and every town I visit, I try to go to the local running stores because you meet
Yes.
great people. The people who own those stores are great. They always know the best routes around there if you're visiting and you want to check out a local trail and all of that.
Key information.
Yeah.
We all trade information. So you learn from someone who's been there, you know.
Yeah.
And some years back, Nike made a terrible marketing decision just to sell online quite a bit,
Yeah.
maybe a few key stores. That was a mistake.
Yes.
Keep your running stores, you
Yeah.
know, and because that's where, I mean, I had a running store myself with my brother
Yeah. Yeah.
Charlie.
Yeah.
He ran it, you know, but for 35 years, it gave all of us who were trying to get going in our lives and to make a living and everything, but also we could bring in podiatrists to reach, you know, speakers.
Yeah.
That's why I call it Bill Rodgers Running Center.
Yeah.
And we couldn't afford the franchise fee to go with like Fleet Feet or some other
Yeah.
chain that was today. I still think it's very key. And I think Nike is re-engaging in the running shoe world. You know, they're
Yeah.
big in golf and tennis. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Oh yeah.
They're a
Definitely.
huge company. And so they had to branch out. But running is what made Nike. Steve Prefontaine, Bowerman, the track, World
Yeah.
Athletics, you know. So that's the backbone. And now that we have this, the new running boom, which you talked about, Hillary, is so smart. The young people who are really changing the sport, you know, and at every level, you know, at every level, from the raw beginners who are out there more and more and more. They're changing their lives for the better. And once you do that, you live in the way we're supposed to live. We're supposed to be out walking or riding a bike, you know? And I think our country is changing that way
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
it has been doing that a long time. But I think we needed the women to get out there,
Definitely.
for that door to open. And so you got to thank the pioneer women and everyone who thought to change the sport for the better. So I think through your podcast, Hillary, you can reach more and more people, this media form, you know, and
That's the goal.
I mean to change people's lives, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
If you do that, and we're all lucky. And if you've run Boston, you know what Boston is like. It's a very, very tricky course, you know. Even Ilya Kipchoge, probably the world's greatest male marathoner, had a tricky time at Boston.
Yeah.
I dropped out my first Boston. It was destruction because it's so tricky, and the crowds are phenomenal, but they can get you going too much and say, oh,
Yeah.
I can do this. And suddenly,
Especially with the
man,
downhill at the start, you're like, wow, I feel amazing. Like I'm gonna go all out.
yeah, but 10 miles later, you're
Yeah.
like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
you really got to back off. So we all know that these days, there's so many people running Boston, 30,000, And when I first ran it, there were 2,000
Yeah.
runners, And when I ran my first 5 borough in New York, there were like 2,000 runners. It was as big as Boston.
Yeah.
And Frank Shorter was making jokes about, can New York City run a marathon through the New York City streets with all their taxi drivers and all that? You know what I mean? It's totally
Yeah.
crazy, but
It
they
is.
did
It
it.
is crazy. Yeah. And it's crazy. Because I ran New York City. That's what this shirt's from just this last fall. And we set a world record. I think it was beaten by London this year.
Yeah,
But it was more than 50,000 people out there. And it was crazy how many people are in those streets.
it is a intense, intense marathon. That intensity, you want it to be on your side. You want to be able to use it. So that means you start moderate.
Yeah,
If you start moderate or use the Jeff Galloway run walk method,
yeah,
you are gonna finish.
definitely.
If you ran stupid like I did a bunch of times, you might not make it, and
Yeah,
it did move to the cool weather. It moved to late October, which is when I was able to win the race in the cool weather. And they had a few times in late October where it got hot, and now it's first week in November. But that's so smart. You
yeah.
got to adapt to Mother Nature.
Definitely. Now, out of the four wins at
Mhm.
New York City, which one would you say stands out the most? Like most vivid memories, most special, or are they kind of even in your mind?
76, like I said, it really was because Hillary, I bombed out in the Olympic Games. Not
Yeah,
totally,
yeah,
not totally. I mean, I made it to the Olympic team, which was the be all and end all. There was no world championships marathoning when I was a marathoner,
yeah.
not till I think,
83.
yeah, 83. That's right, the first one. So by then I was getting worn down and everything. But so this was my, to make a comeback. When you have a bad marathon, you get fired up to make your comeback, and
Definitely.
that was the perfect day. It was 55 degrees. I'm running with my buddy Tom Fleming at the front. He's won the Arc before. He's a 212 guy, New Jersey guy, You know what I'm saying,
Yeah,
This is pretty
yeah.
intense. And up ahead of us, 300 yards is a fin. Now, for a long time, the Finns were like the Kenyans today or the
Oh yeah.
Ethiopians, the
Oh
best in the
yeah.
world. Finns ruled the sport for 50 years, 40, 50 years. It's Pekka Päivärinta. Well, most people don't know who he is. I know who he was. He was a gold medalist in world cross country and set the world record for 25 kilometers, which I later broke that world record on the track.
Yeah.
Just saying. I did actually. I wasn't a great track runner, but I could occasionally ran well on the track. But in other words, what I'm saying is the intensity
Yeah.
of that start. Boston and New York have the best starts in the world.
Oh yeah.
They're the best starts. I mean, it's intense as hell on that bridge. The Verrazano Nose Bridge, you're going to run across that. This was revolutionary in 76. And you see across the way, New York. And when you're crossing the bridge, the Queensboro Bridge, um, that's where I broke away, really. I think it was around then, I said, there's Manhattan.
Yeah.
You're getting into
Yeah.
the city, It's time to duke it out and go for it. It's New York is exciting as heck.
It
But
is.
but and I don't know, it's a cool race.
Do you return to New York the way you do for Boston?
You know what? I've been to New York. I've done what they bring me back for sometimes is they have a streakers event. People who have run 45 years. I have a good friend, he's a doctor on Long Island, Dr. Frank Ad Pietro. He's involved with a race on Long Island with his wife, who was a former marathoner too. And so I see him at the Streakers event sometimes. I'm hoping, I'm going to be in New York this year for two things for sure. The marathon, I wish they would contact me. I would love to be more involved at New
Yeah.
York.
Yeah.
It's very complicated because I'm older, I think, but anyway, I am going to the Staten Island. They have a program which is really cool. It's for the kids of Staten Island, and it's led by a guy named Jeff Benjamin, he's from Staten Island and everything, and solid runner, and he is a history teacher. And so he's a smart guy. And so and Staten Island's produced they produced Art Hall, who was with the New York Roadrunners Club, Bill Welch, who was champion from that area, and many other athletes. And so he puts on this event. They had Joan Samuelson there last year, Jim Spivey, Olympic 1500-meter guy, Bob Beamon, the Olympic gold medalist, set the world record in Mexico City. He's an interesting guy. And
Yeah.
Matt Centrowitz, who
Yeah.
wrote
Yeah. Of
Father Like Son and Great
course.
Champion. So they bring them in and we meet the young people, like 300, 400 young people, something like that, and their parents, and they give out scholarships.
That's
So
so cool.
that is cool.
I love that. That's very cool.
Yeah, so Jeff is a leader that way, and his friend, Tony Gulata, who is a buddy of his from that area and a runner. And so they work as a team to bring this group together. And this year, also at the New York AC, there's going to be an event for about 10 different athletes are invited to, Frank Shorter's invited, I think Dina Castor, I'm sure Joan will be there. Whoever, saluting New York City Marathon. And so we're all going to donate an item because there's now a museum, World Athletics Museum, which is being built now by Seb Coe and by the people at World Athletics. So we'll all donate an item there,
That is so cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a good thing.
oh wow. I will have to check that out next time I'm in the area because I'm not doing New York this year. I'm doing Chicago this fall, but I'm that sounds like such a cool thing. So the World Athletics Museum is going to be in New York City?
No, the museum, I'm not sure where it is going to be. The Olympic headquarters are in Switzerland, I think in Lausanne. I'm
Okay.
not certain, but it's an online place right now. They haven't built it yet, but I
Okay.
think it's definitely going to happen. Of
Very
course, we
cool.
have our own U.S. Olympic Training Center and
Yeah.
museum at
Yeah.
Colorado Springs, I think,
Yeah.
and which is phenomenal. But we really need to do something like that. And I'm hoping one day, Ted Corbett's son, Gary, has tried to speak for a number of years about an athletics museum being built in the United States. We have a museum of a sort at the track, where the Millrose games are held,
Yeah.
I think, in the Bronx, I believe, and but we don't have a museum. I think we should have one, maybe one
Absolutely.
in New York.
That would
And
be great.
yeah, that would be key because a lot of people, like Kathy Switzer, just sent all her memorabilia to her college, Syracuse University. And I know Jackie Hansen sent her memorabilia to the University of Massachusetts. For some reason, she didn't go to that college, but a lot of people have memorabilia, but what do you do with it?
Yeah.
There's no museum. So I'm hoping Phil Knight who's done great things for our
Yeah.
sport. He funded the new track in Eugene
Yeah.
where World Athletics Champs are held. He funded a new cancer center. I see he put $2 billion up for that in the area in Oregon. But I hope that he will step up to the plate, or maybe Jim Davis will do it. He's a billionaire.
Yeah.
He's done really well with New Balance. They do have a new track in Boston and kind of a mini museum. but someone's got to do it. Someone's got to lead the way. It's just like the marathon.
Yeah.
Who's going to lead the way?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I agree. I really hope to see something like that as well. Well, Bill, I really, really appreciate your time coming on and super excited to see all of the different things that you have coming up and going on. Last question from me. So you mentioned before we started recording that you went running this morning. What do you have going on as far as races or anything else that you are actually running, not just coming as a speaker or supporter?
I'm headed to the Dick Beardsley races in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, December 4th, 5th, 6th. Dick's going to take me fishing, which I haven't done. He's taken me out before. He is really a high level guide and everything, and a terrific guy, terrific athlete. Him and his wife, they own a bed and breakfast in
Yeah,
Detroit
yeah.
Lakes, which I highly
Bemidji.
recommend to everyone, runners or not. But after that, hopefully I will be at, I know I'm going to New York for some events. I'd like to do some more things with the marathon organization.
Hmm.
If I could hold a finish line tape or do something.
Yeah,
And maybe meet some of the young champions. I haven't met all the young champions. I've seen the field for this year's race.
yeah. Oh,
Bill
it's great.
Klecker's running his first
Yeah,
marathon.
yeah,
And
yeah. I
Emily
saw that.
Sisson is running, you
Yeah,
know. And so we've got, I like it that they're taking care of the American champions too, you know. And so is Chicago.
yeah.
Good luck at Chicago,
Thank you.
Hillary, too. And the thing about Chicago, they usually get really good weather.
Yeah,
You can motor there. If you like the flat courses, you can motor there. I mean, world records have been set there.
yeah,
Steve Jones, and uh so that, and I think the American women's record was set there, 2:18, 2 hours 18, which is a mind-boggling time.
yeah, yeah,
So we'll see how it goes.
yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bill.
Thanks for having me on, Hillary. See you on the roads.
What a great conversation. And something that I love about Bill is how passionate he is about the sport and how involved he remains within the running community after all of these years. That is all for today's show. Thank you again to Bill for being my guest, and an enormous thank you to all of y'all for your patience with me as I was sick. Please like, subscribe, comment, share, and send this episode to someone you know who will be running the New York City Marathon this weekend. And if that's you, I hope you have an incredible time at what I consider to be one of the single greatest marathons in existence. Join me next time for a conversation with another New York City Marathon champion, Beb Keflezighi. I'm your host, Running Up That Hillary, and this has been Today in Running History. Intro. I cannot. No. All right, here's the interview. Hey, Bill. Oh, hi, Hillary. So you won the New York City Marathon. Yeah, I heard you ran it too. So pretty much we're the same person. Yeah, we're both really great, incredible athletes. Okay.